Toni Ventura, how did you manage to get yourself onto YouTube?
Well, I did a story for Scorpion Television back in 1992 at the television station. I wanted to tell a story about the legendary George Goldner and Frankie Lyman. So I told my story, and to my amazement, it was on YouTube. I found it on Google on YouTube, and what a surprise.
And have you made any other videos since then?
No, I haven't made any other videos since then. Matter of fact, this is my first personal video that I'm making, you know. But no, I haven't, and I'm glad to be on YouTube again.
And what will be the content of your digital diaries?
Well, the content of my digital diaries will be many rock and roll stories that rock and roll historians know nothing about. See, these stories in the beginning of rock and roll, the birth of rock and roll in 1956, George Goldner and Aunt Gracie left to me. I mean, it's impossible to forget about them or let them go away. So it brings back many memories, and my content will be many more stories. I have a special story about Louis Lyman, Frankie Lyman's brother, and the teenagers I'd like to tell a little story about, being the president, the original president of their fan club, which George Goldner gave me the honors, and stories about my experience with Frankie, and my love stories with Frankie, a little bit of them, and let the fans know what a wonderful and khaki and a jolly and happy, something like I am, you know, happy and jolly, but also a sad life.
Going back to the early 1950s, what are some of your best memories of that time?
Oh boy, Frankie Lyman's first kiss. That's one of my wonderful memories, just being close to him. We just had something that was very special between Frankie and I. He sang love songs to me. He sent me love letters. He sent me gardenias when he was away. I didn't see too much of Frankie because he was getting into stardom, but when I did, when he was in New York, that's when we got together, you know, coming to the house and signing his original pictures like this one here, and going to the movies, and buying me little gifts. And then he was off again to London. And I appreciate his love letters. And one day I received a paper in the mail. And my mother said, "There's something here for you." So she opened it and she says, "I don't understand this. I don't understand what the paper was all about. Take this note, this paper to your garden teacher in school. It's for you." And so I said, okay. So I took the paper and I presented it to my garden teacher at school. And she says to me, "Somebody left you a will." So I said, "Oh my, somebody left you insurance will here. A Frankie Lyman?" I says, "Oh my, he did such a thing like that." I said, "Oh my, he did such a, oh, is that what it is?" So anyway, I left it at that and I thanked the teacher and I went home and I told Mom, it's insurance policy. I guess Frankie said it to me. She says, "Oh." I said, "I guess it's because he's going overseas to England, you know." Loving things like that, you know. And he was a fantastic, loving guy. Crazy at times, you know. Happy-go-lucky, smart little Frankie Lyman. Very, very talented and very loving.
All that happened in New York. But where are you originally from?
Well, I'm a Latin from Manhattan, but originally from Brooklyn, New York. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, 96 Wyckoff Street. And I must say, I've got an accent as thick as a slice of Italian pizza and everything on it.
Tell us more about your Uncle George Goldner and your relationship with him.
Well, Uncle George was one of the biggest figures in the rock and roll music industry. He made the first rock and roll record, G by the Crows. And he was big as life in the music business. He recorded many famous groups. His first rock and roll record ever, he made the first rock and roll record by the Crows. And he recorded Little Anthony and the Imperials. They recorded the Chantels, the fabulous Chantels. And he recorded the Drifters, the Isley Brothers. Everyone came to Mr. George Goldner to make hit records. I mean, his list is endless. George's Goldner's list is endless. So he made people legends, really. And still today, they're prospering from their fruits because of George Goldner, putting them in a recording studio and recording them and make hits. So they're still prospering and making money today, you know. And I think George Goldner should have the credit for that, you know. Pointing fingers and things like that, I don't think that's nice. So George did give them a future, let's say.
Did George just deal with groups or with other people in the music business?
He dealt with everybody, and he gave everybody a chance. He made everybody his partners to learn the music business, the record business. Richard Barrett was one of his first great partners in the beginning of rock and roll. Jerry Wexler, he made a partner. He made Seymour Stein a partner also. He worked for George. And Phil Spector also worked as a partner with George. So, and he helped them. He, you know, showed them the record business. And so they learned from George, and they wanted to learn from George, you know. And Bill Buchanan and Dickie Goodman, you know, they had the Spaceship Downtown record on Luniverse Records. That was George's record too.
So Toni, tell us about your digital diaries. What are you going to be putting in them?
Oh, I'm going to be putting in many rock and roll stories, memorabilia, my memories of the years gone by. In 1956, I was present there. I was backstage with all the famous rock and roll stars. Went to the Apollo Theater, loved the Apollo Theater, of course, and we went to go see Frankie at the Apollo that day, and he asked Aunt Gracie, well, where are you going to be sitting? So Aunt Gracie said, in the balcony. So he says, okay. But to my surprise, when he did come on stage real quickly, bop, 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 do out, bop, 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 he turned around and he, you know, looking like, you know, where we were going to send, and he found us. And he kept singing with the teenagers, and he came to sing one of his solo records, Please Be Mine. And it's a beautiful record. And all of a sudden, I was sitting there, and Frankie turns over to the box where we were sitting, and he started to sing Please Be Mine to me. I mean, getting on his knees, you know, getting practically on his knees, singing, Will You Please Be Mine? And my aunt poked me and said, he's singing to you, he's singing to you. So I just looked, I was shy, and I looked at him. And all of a sudden, the audience from down above looked, you know, said, who is he singing to, you know? So that was a great little, you know, tickle in my life, the way Frankie wanted me to be recognized with him, you know, Please Be Mine, the song. So little stories like that, stories when he took me to the movies, story of his families, his wonderful brother, Howie, Timothy, and Louie, and his mother, Jeanette. I met his mother, Jeanette. Sorry to say, she was dying of cancer at the time. And his father, Howard, and I remember meeting them in their apartment in Harlem, and he says, he says, and this is Roy Rogers. So Frankie, he tells, Father tells Frankie, Frankie, why Roy Rogers? Well, look at her legs. She's so bow-legged. So anyway, that was funny. And stories in Bell Sound Studio, how George put me in a chair. He says, now Frankie, sing to Toni, and he would sing his heart out to me. Cher was a session at that time. They were cutting Cher. And boy, did I get goosebumps, when he started to sing that song to me. And the movie, he took me to a movie, and it's funny, but it's true. It's not funny, I shouldn't say funny, but it's true. When he came up to the studio, when he came up to the apartment in Central Park West, Riverside Drive, and he knocked at the door, and Uncle George answered the door, and he says, Mr. Goldner, can I take your niece, Toni, to a movie? So George said, all right. And he looked at his watch. He says, bring her back here within 2 hours. Okay, Frankie? Yes, Mr. Goldner. So we called a cab, and we went to a movie theater somewhere along the strip there on Fifth Avenue somewhere. And we got out of the cab, and Frankie says, uh-oh, I think somebody spotted me. I see some teenagers. They're coming after us. Come on, quick, let's run to the theater. So I said, okay, Frankie. And Frankie and I started to run, and we got into the theater. But to my surprise, that I didn't know, I was kind of naive at the time, young. We went to go see the picture that he took me, The Man with the Golden Arm. Frank Sinatra, The Man with the Golden Arm. What do I know, The Man with the Golden Arm? I was young, 12 and a half, 13. But Frankie knew what the picture was all about, but he didn't tell me. So I just sat there and confused and trying to figure out the picture and, what was it all about. So, and that was it. And then we left. We went to go have dinner on 42nd Street. And he took me to 42nd Street to have a dinner. And to my surprise, growing up and after all these years, I realized what The Man with the Golden Arm was all about, and I don't know what purpose or whatever. He just wanted to see the movie, and just to my surprise, after all these years, when The Man with the Golden Arm, and I got to realize and got knowledge of the picture, I said, wow.
Tell me about The Boy from New York City.
Oh boy, The Boy from New York City. Well, I'd like to give a big thank you, a wonderful, warm thank you to the brilliant producer, Floyd Matrix. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And the phenomenal cast from The Boy from New York City. It's a story they made of Uncle George and Aunt Gracie. George and Aunt Gracie Goldner. And they put together this musical play on Broadway. And hey, I want to thank them, from Gracie and from me. We send you much, much love and appreciation. Positively, you left Aunt Gracie with happy tears in her eyes. What a wonderful, loving gift you've done, and what a great achievement that you bestowed upon George Goldner and Grace Goldner, making a musical about them. So we're very happy, and thank you so much. And I sent them I sent Aunt Gracie an envelope, a big envelope, and in that envelope I put pictures, and I put the script in there for her to read, and the names, and she received them. And surely, she had tears in her eyes, surprised, That was a wonderful, wonderful, loving gift that Mr. Metrics and the cast from from the boys from New York City. So it's a wonderful story about the rock and roll era, how George opened up the doors and created rock and roll and the songs and the music. And that's the boy from New York City, and I thank you. And Aunt Gracie thanks you very much too. So I have to say a thank you to you, Mr. Metrix, and to your lovely wife too, and the cast, of course.
So what about the next generation of the Goldners?
Yes, Well, Uncle George left behind a grandson, you know. Matter of fact, a warm welcome, and I think it's appropriate to greet Carrie Goldner and George Goldner's grandson, George Goldner II. Hello, and of course Bonnie and Mona Goldner. So he left behind a wonderful family, you know, and his grandson, which he never knew, you know. And he loved his children dearly, that's for sure, you know.
So for those people who are going to follow your digital diaries, what else is to come?
Like I said before, all my memory stories of Uncle George and Aunt Gracie and of Frankie Lyman yet to come. And of course, I have a wonderful story about his brother that just recently passed away, Louis Lyman, you know. He was a sad soul, but a wonderful and loving man and great talent. He was sure will be missed, you know. He was a wonderful, funny, happy-go-lucky entertainer, you know, and he was talented. And you know, we lived together in Harlem back in 1982 when we met, you know, and he told me many stories, you know, that he shared with me. And so that I will have that in my digital diaries, and the groups and the songs, and oh, you could go on and on. It'll be endless.